2023.
Thank you for welcoming me to your microphone and by extension your studio. I'm Gabriel B. Smith from Liberia, a member of the Pan-African Parliament, serving on the Committee of Monetary Affairs and Finance as the rapporteur, and just got recently elected as the Vice Chair of the West African Caucus.
Today, Monetary and Finance Affairs was actually having the presentation.
Yeah.
How do you feel it went, and what do you feel could have been done best?
Well, considering the level of authority that we now operate on or operate with, I think the committee has done significantly well. There are things that we see happening today which did not happen in time past, like having the AUC coming to present the budget. Before then, they would just remain in Ethiopia, and they wouldn't come out to the parliament to appear before the parliamentarians. And we believe strongly that while we appreciate this little progress of the AUC coming to present the budget before the parliament, we believe that going forward, we will hope that the budget can be sent to the parliament about 2 weeks ahead so that it can be properly scrutinized by the Committee on Finance and Monetary Affairs before they come and do the formal presentation or the final presentation before the parliament. Because the budget is a very detailed material, and it will take time for members to actually comprehend and ask those critical questions. Now, for instance, we are talking about Africa's Agenda 2063. Now, we would like to see to what extent does this budget address Africa movement forward with Agenda 2063. What are those things we intend to achieve as parliamentarians? Talking about Agenda 2063, what are those things that are on Africa's agenda that we want to achieve? How does the budget affect each of those items that have been listed by the EU that will drive Africa towards the level of unity that we talked about? You talked about Africa's unification. You talked about a borderless Africa. You talked about Africa moving forward with technological development. How do we address these issues? Talk about youth empowerment on the continent. Now, this is very key when you talk about youth empowerment on our continent. You talk about educational development. What are those programs that the budget is addressing educationally that will empower our young people? How do we ensure, having educated our young people when they shall have graduated, they return to their respective countries? How do we provide jobs for them? When Africa is exporting work out of our continent to Europe, Asia, and America, by virtue of the kind of economic system that we run, we encourage investors to come in, they extract our natural resources, export them to Europe and America, they build the factories, the processing plant, they do the manufacturing there. But that we are exporting jobs from our continent to theirs, and they are creating jobs for their people, and by extension strengthening their economy. So what can Africa do to reverse this situation? How do we address it through the budget? And so the budget will require a level of critical analysis, which cannot be done in a day or two. And this is why we believe as a committee, and we've recommended that already, that going forward, we will hope that the AUC can submit a budget about 2 weeks ahead, which will give the committee a chance to properly scrutinize the budget and make the necessary recommendation, so that Africa, we would not just be coming here as a talking shop. You come here, you talk one thing this year, by the time you come back the next session, the same thing appears and there is no change. We want to see a progressive Africa. We want to see a transformed Africa, an Africa in which our youth will be secured, that our young people do not go to bed hungry, that our little children growing up can go to school knowing that they can have little lunch during recess period to eat something. And how do we do that? It will depend on the level and quality of the program that is developed by Africa and supported through the budget system, that we can ensure agricultural development in our respective countries, that we can ensure the strengthening of our educational program in terms of technological development and strengthen Africa economically. I tell you, as we stand, if you ask any African from whichever country in Africa, will say, hey, we have our independence. And that is so true in the letter. But you see, economic independence supports political independence. In the absence of economic independence, if you are politically independent, you are still an indirect slave. And this is why the donor community, they still control our agenda. They tell us exactly what kind of program to run. It should be the other way around. But why? Because they feed us, so they direct our course of action. So I believe strongly that as Africans, specifically this parliament, which in the wisdom of the framers of the document of Africa's unity, should stand as the voice of the African people. This parliament has a lot to do. And that's why some of us are happy that by the grace of God, we are here to combine our effort with other serious-minded people who are well-intentioned on transforming Africa to go into 2063 as a united Africa. Another agenda we talked about uniting Africa by intercontinental or road or railroad transport system. How do we do that? Where do we begin from? These things must form part of our agenda for discussion, and they must be addressed by the budget of the EU. As things stand, if we remain on the current trajectory of Africa just depending outside the stretching of our hand, we cannot achieve any of these. But good enough in the wisdom of the Assembly of Heads of State, they have come to reason out that we cannot keep begging. And so now they've introduced a tariff system of 2% on all eligible input. Now that is good. But again, at the level of the parliament, we will hope that in the not too distant future, we can have a clear explanation on that as to how the money will be collected, how it is spent, and we need accountability. When the monies are spent, there must be a reflection in the performance report that will be submitted by the AUC. So with respect to the budget, I think so far, given the limited power we have, the committee has done extremely well in terms of addressing other issues pertaining to the parliament. But we still need to do more as we progress towards a united Africa.
Okay. If you could say something to your fellow countrymen or Africa, what would be the message?
Well, basically what I can say to Africans in general is that we must realize that Africa will not be developed by Europe, America, and Asia. Africa's problem must be solved by Africans. Africa has been left behind in the race. And like the great freedom fighter, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. said, he said, he who lags behind in a race will forever remain behind or run 2 times as much as the man that is ahead if he's able to catch up. If Africa must catch up, we must take some critical and practical steps towards our unity. We must take concrete action towards educational empowerment of our young people. We must take critical steps towards economic emancipation. Africa is still enslaved economically by virtue of the fact that our people go to bed hungry. Our children go to bed not knowing whether they will go to school the next day, whether they're going to be chunked out of schools. And so as African parliamentarians, whether belonging to the PAP or in your respective national parliament, now is the time that we all must rise up to the occasion. We must realize that God has allowed us to serve in this capacity because there are certain qualities He's endowed us with to be used positively for the growth and development of our people. And so I call on all of you, let us hold together. Let us ensure that Africa Agenda 2063 becomes a living reality. It should not just remain in letter. And the way it's going to happen is when parliamentarians get serious to discuss issues, to research the matters, and critically discuss them and advance suggestions and recommendations towards the unity of Africa, as well as our empowerment economically. Just lastly, on the issue of economic empowerment, as I indicated earlier, by virtue of the fact that we allow Europe, America, and Asia invest in our country and only extract our resources and take them to their homes and create a factories, we are exporting the job there. And so when they come, let us build up a partnership. We agreed you build a factory here. Let our children get jobs, let them be trained in the manufacturing industries. Once we do that, we'll create more jobs for our citizens on the continent of Africa, and our young people will not or commit suicide by riding in boat across the Mediterranean to go to Europe and see greener pasture. Think about the hundreds of children that die on a weekly basis trying to go to Europe. Why? Because Africa has never developed a responsible step of addressing the needs of our people. And so the way we do it is to ensure that our resources are used and properly managed on the continent, and that corruption is minimized. Corruption is another menace that is eating up the fabric of our continent. It's terrible. How much does one man need? Some of our African leaders, they got millions of dollars. What for exit, investment, yet still we need more. And thousands of children are dying in poverty and hunger. This is cruel. Africa, we must stop. We must make sure that we can create an egalitarian society, a society that will cater to the general society, because that is the essence of government, to provide the common good for our people. And I believe we can do it. Look, recently I was in Algeria, and I was thrilled by what I saw. I visited one of the interior districts of Algeria, and I saw the government building housing estate for its citizens, so that the people would not live in the street or they would not live in shacks and ghettos. That's what a responsible government should do. Of course, this is not to suggest that they are perfect, but I'm sure that they are taking some responsible step in the right direction. Other African countries can do the same. Let us cater to our people. Government is best, which governs least. We must think about the common people of our country. And if we do that as the individual level of our countries, and at the level of the continent, we combine our resources, combine our intellectual capabilities, Africa can transform to the level that we can be in the driver's seat of continental development. Again, I thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.